Mexican soccer has a lot of untapped potential, but it feels like it has always been that way. And now, it actually feels like it's worse than ever. A mess of a federation, corruption, politics, soccer oligarchs, all these factors and much more continue to hold soccer in Mexico hostage. And as much as I like to joke about how El Tri is finished, by the end of this video, you might actually believe that they are. Hi, if you're new here, I'm Filippo, and welcome to Tactical Manager TV, and welcome to today's episode, where we're going to talk about how Mexican soccer is broken, and I don't know if it'll ever be fixed. This is how it's going to go. First, I want to talk about the reasons why I believe Mexico should be a soccer superpower globally, which they are not. Then, I will go through the reasons why they are not a superpower globally. Now, I will mention the main ones, but if I were to go through every single reason, I would probably have to make this a series with multiple seasons. Way too many factors, and it'll be way too long. You would get tired of it, kind of like The Walking Dead. Is that show still going on? Now listen, I'm not even Mexican, but I have plenty of Mexican friends, and I've seen all these failures the past few years from the Mexican Federation national team, so I decided to do some research and dig into this mess. I also counted with the help of Memo from Los Expulsados on YouTube. I'm putting their links and handle on the description. Thank you very much for the help, and feel free to leave your thoughts on the comment section down below and hit the like button if you hate your soccer federation. And I guess that applies to Mexicans, and to Americans, and many other nationalities. Okay? Let's dive into this. Mexico has never reached the World Cup semifinals in their history, and from 1994 to 2018, they consistently got knocked out in the round of 16, which became known as the Maldición del Quinto Partido, or the curse of the fifth match. Essentially, they would always get knocked out on the fourth match, so the Maldición del Quinto Partido is that they could never reach the fifth match of the World Cup, which is essentially in modern soccer or modern World Cup format, the quarterfinals. And in 2022, Mexico decided to break that curse, but not by reaching the fifth match, but by simply leaving the World Cup in the group stage and playing just 3 matches. So I guess that counts. They broke the Maldición del Quinto Partido by turning it into the Cuarto Partido, the 4th match. I guess that's a win. The curse is gone. So obviously those are not terrible results, but Mexico to me strikes as a nation that could have won a World Cup by now in their history, or at least reached the level of a Netherlands, for example, with multiple deep runs. I mean, they literally have all the elements you need to be a very strong national team. But let's look at it this way. They have all the factors you need. They have a passionate fan base. Soccer is the #1 sport in their country. They have a large population that I understand it doesn't play a crucial role, like otherwise Croatia and Uruguay would never be competitive, but it does play a role. Having more people means you could dig more talent here and there. Look at Brazil, big country, good development, look at how they perform. Mexico also has a very rich domestic league, which is also a problem. We're going to talk about that very soon. And they have plenty of young talent. They are highly accomplished in the youth tournaments. They have made deep runs in the U20 World Cup. They have even won 2 U17 World Cups. So they do have talent. So why the heck does Mexico suck at World Cups? What is holding Mexican soccer back? So why don't we dive into that, which is the most interesting part of this video anyway. So why isn't El Tri as good as they should be? Why are they not a global superpower? I'm going to go through now 4 reasons why I believe that is, and you can tell me if you agree or not. The first one of them being lack of competition in CONCACAF. Now look, many claim that this is one of the many reasons, and to a certain extent, most people are right, but let's not kid ourselves here, because truly, this ain't big enough of a problem. CONCACAF is one of the weakest confederations in the world, that is true, and you know, that most certainly does not help Mexico challenge themselves and improve. It does also hurt the US men's national team. However, it is such a tiny reason towards why Mexico's maximum potential is not unlocked that it actually does not matter. And I know I said this was one of the reasons, but I'm almost using this one to debunk this theory that CONCACAF is the biggest problem and they're holding Mexican soccer back, which is simply not true. Regardless of CONCACAF's level, Mexico could still produce world-class players, which they currently are not. Send them to Europe, and I guess, maybe, struggle in the World Cup due to the national team not playing competitive opponents. But you would still make deep runs occasionally, and you would still see the world-class players there. Essentially what I'm saying here is if CONCACAF was stronger, it is more likely that Mexico would miss World Cups instead of having a stronger national team, because Mexican soccer has deeper issues to be addressed before they can complain about the lack of competition in CONCACAF. I mean, if that was the actual problem, then I guess it's fixed with the CONMEBOL-CONCACAF partnership that's starting next year, actually starting pretty much this year in 2023. But again, I don't think it'll magically make L3 a global powerhouse. I actually think it might continue to be roughly the same, with Mexico having a better generation here and there. That'll happen. The reasons Mexican soccer is broken are far worse. The rabbit hole is far deeper. So let's talk about the one that we didn't want to talk about in this video, but we're going to have to address, which is corruption. Or alleged corruption. Okay, let's talk about that, because that's probably what's actually holding Mexican soccer back. Liga MX, aka the Mexican Soccer League, is an extremely rich league, and as good as that sounds, it sort of hurts Mexican soccer as well, as the sport of the people has been stolen by soccer oligarchs that their primary focus is financial gains and political influence. I mean, the Liga MX president himself is literally a career politician. Sure, I understand that the sport is a business. Soccer is a business and it needs to make money. But then I want to ask you, at what cost? Is it okay to exploit the passion of the population for the sport for financial and political gains? Where do we draw the line here? Well, I think when it reaches levels of corruption, you have crossed that line. So why don't we start by talking about the Go cartel? Let me explain what it is. So investigations are still going on and a lot will come out, but let's oversimplify it on this video just so you can kind of understand what's going on. It was essentially a network of sporting directors, professional coaches, and agents that allegedly would profit from buying and selling foreign players with overinflated prices. Let me give you an example to explain. This group gets a foreign player for $1 million. Then they count with the help of a coach or sporting director of a Liga MX club to push for the signing of this player for, let's say, $4 million. So the group profits from this, and the coach and sporting director would get a cut off this profit, which means these signings weren't really being made because they would make the team better. They were literally made so these groups, these corrupt groups, these alleged corrupt groups, would profit out of it, just from overinflating prices of players that they would buy. Now, there were some big names involved in this investigation on the illegal side of it, which I'm not going to mention on this video. You can go do your research yourself there. That goes beyond my point of corruption here. Now, the reason the Go cartel is being investigated is because it affects the club owners, the so-called, at least the way I'm referring to them, the soccer oligarchs of Mexico. They don't make money off of this. They lose money because of the Go cartel. So it's being investigated and dealt with. Otherwise, nothing would be done. When it's done by the club owners, usually nothing is done to address it. So why don't we talk about them now? As they literally get away with everything they do. For example, Televisa has way too much influence in Mexican soccer landscape at the moment. They own Club America, they have strong TV deals, and the current president of the Mexican Football Federation, Mr. Yon de Luisa, is a former president of Club America and the former vice president of Televisa Deportes. The rabbit hole is deep, man. I can't go through everything. Hello, Filippo from the future here. So after we recorded the entire episode, breaking news came out that the Mexican Soccer Federation president, Yon de Luisa, actually sent in his resignation. However, it still has to be evaluated and accepted by the club owners, believe it or not. And they will also decide who reaches the position after Yon de Luisa, essentially who becomes the new president of the federation. And they've even said that recently he's been kind of annoyed, Yon de Luisa. He was even absent of the presentation of Diego Cocca, the new head coach of El Tri. How does that affect Mexican soccer? I don't know, but I thought it was worth adding to this video. So the president, Yon de Luisa, apparently presented his resignation. By the time you're watching this, he might already be gone, or maybe they changed his mind somehow. Who knows? As I said, it seems like Mexican soccer is broken. Okay, that's the update from Filippo from the future. Bye-bye. Now look, even the hiring of their new Mexican national team head coach was political. For starters, they have a national team committee that has power in the process of hiring a new coach. Oh, hey, a national team committee. That sounds reasonable. That makes sense. But who runs this committee? The ones that run this committee are the club owners of Chivas, Guadalajara, Santos Laguna, Tijuana, Necaxa, Club America, and the federation's president that also has very strong ties with Club America and Televisa. This committee was against the hiring of Marcelo Bielsa. And listen to this. Whether you think Bielsa was a good option or not is not my point. My point is, why do these club owners have any influence on who should or should not be the national team coach? Worry about your own clubs. But, I mean, more power, more political influence. It's all a game to them. But as I said, the hiring of Diego Cocca, the new national team head coach for Mexico, was extremely political. And Hercules Gomez does a great job in Futbol Americas at the episode February 9th, where he explains it. So I don't feel like going into details here. My point has been made. Go check out Futbol Americas if you want to understand more about this specific event. If you want to see other issues related, you can look up the Pacto de Caballeros, which essentially means the gentleman's agreement, which it's really nothing to do with being a gentleman. A gentleman would never do what they did. Also, if you want an interesting story to look up the story of the Monarcas Morelia, which, you know, they no longer exist, and they were replaced by the Mazatlan FC. Like I said, I can go through everything, but there are too many stories of corruption, political games, and exploitation of the passion of the fans that they bring into the game. And to me, this corruption section, or the alleged corruption section, is what really holds Futbol Mexicano back, or Mexican soccer. But there's two more things I want to address before we close this video. So let's talk about real quick another thing that holds back the potential of Mexico, and that is their rich league holding players, I wouldn't say hostage, but just holding them in their league, sometimes forever or for too long. I believe that the fact that Liga MX is a very rich league and can afford to pay some very high wages or salaries, along with demanding some very high transfer fees from clubs abroad, does hurt the development of Mexican talent. Regardless of the league being rich and competitive, it's not as good as the best leagues in Europe. And if you don't send your top talent in a high or reasonably high volume, they will likely never reach their full potential. You need to send them to the best leagues in the world to play against the best players, get the best coaching, everything. I know this sounds obvious, and well, it sort of is obvious. Mexico has a lot of young talent, so clubs should sell them for a reasonable transfer fee, not what they're charging at the moment, cash in, and let them go to a tougher environment in a challenge abroad. Some will fail, like Diego Lainez, and some will succeed, like Chucky Lozano, Rafa Marquez, Hugo Sanchez, Guardado, and many others. So you get the point. So that is also something that is holding them from hitting their maximum potential, but it's much smaller than the previous section that I talked about with the Soccer Oligarchs, the Goal Cartel, and all of that. Last but not least, which is something I hear a lot sometimes from Mexican pundits or even soccer fans, that they say that one of the issues Mexico is not highly accomplished in World Cups is because of the mentality of their players. Let me give you my opinion on that. Personally, I do not buy that excuse. I'm sorry, I won't fully cover it because to me it sounds lazy and it just sounds like an excuse. I don't think there's a mentality issue with Mexican players. It just seems like a lame narrative to hide all the real issues that I mentioned earlier in this video, and you know, just to say that the players are the problem. It's not all the corruption and everything going on, it's the players. So I like to debunk this one that I do hear quite often. I just don't believe the players' mentality is an issue. Then they'll go on and say Mexican players party too much. Well, I'll tell you one thing, a lot of athletes do. Look at Brazilian players, they party a lot. What's the excuse there? So I don't buy this one, and I often see it being used. Don't fall for it. It's just a narrative to try to blame the players and not the real issues going on with the Mexican Federation, the league, and the so-called soccer oligarchs. Of course, a lot of that is just my opinion. Some things I stated are facts. Some things I stated are opinions. Let me know yours. So before we wrap things up here, a quick question. Will these issues that I mentioned ever be fixed? Not addressed, fixed? My answer to that is I do not know. I can't answer that. There's a lot of talk about bringing back promotion relegation to Liga MX, facilitating the transfer of players abroad, reducing the number of foreign players in the league, and not allowing single entities to own multiple clubs. But as I said, it's a lot of talk. We'll see if it gets done. When I was a kid, I had a dog that barked a lot, which is the equivalent of talking if you're a human. But my dog was all bark and no bite. And I want to ask you, what is the Mexican Soccer Federation? What is Liga MX? Are they all bark and no bite, or are they going to bite? Is something going to get done? Only time will tell. But at the moment, all I see is a lot of barking. And sometimes things have to get a lot worse before they get better. Alright everyone, thank you very much for watching. Drop a comment letting me know, what did I miss? Are there more issues with Mexican soccer that I did not address? And drop a like if you enjoyed this video and this type of content. And go check out our Pumas versus Chivas match day vlog as I experienced what Mexican soccer culture is, and it is wonderful. I want to thank you all very much for watching, and have a great day.